All right, let's dive right into one of history's greatest puzzles. We're going to talk about a man known as Akbar the Great, who was, without a doubt, one of the most powerful emperors the world has ever seen.
I mean, at its height, the Mughal Empire, under his command, was a global powerhouse, a massive, wealthy state that pretty much dominated the entire Indian subcontinent.
And this number you're seeing? 24,000. That was the number of books in his personal library. We're talking 24,000 handwritten volumes of knowledge from all over the world.
And here's the twist. This brilliant ruler, this patron of learning, was almost certainly illiterate. So how in the world does a boy who never learns to read or write become one of the most enlightened rulers in history?
Well, to understand the man, you have to go back to his childhood. And let me tell you, it was anything but royal. It was pure chaos.
Yeah, Akbar's life didn't start in some grand palace. He was born in a remote desert fortress because his dad, the emperor, was on the run. He was a fugitive king who'd been beaten and kicked out of India. So Akbar was literally an emperor in exile from day one.
He was separated from his parents, raised by his uncles in Kabul, and his education, well, it was all practical. While other princes were busy studying books, Akbar was mastering how to hunt, how to fight, how to survive. But, and this is the incredible part, he developed a phenomenal memory. Every single night, he would have scholars read to him. So he learned to rule not by reading, but by listening to a flood of different ideas, a skill that would come to define his entire reign.
And then, history gives us this just unbelievable dose of irony. Akbar's father, Humayun, after finally managing to reconquer Delhi, trips on the stairs of his own library and dies. The scholarly father dies surrounded by his books, leaving his illiterate son to inherit a kingdom that was barely holding together.
So, at just 14 years old, Akbar wasn't so much given a crown as he was thrown into a crisis that would have shattered most grown men. This was truly his trial by fire. Just look at how fast things fell apart. Within months of his dad's death, this kid has already lost his two most important cities, Delhi and Agra. They were taken by a brilliant general named Humayun, who then declared himself the new emperor. The Mughal dream was about to be extinguished.
The situation was beyond desperate. Many of Akbar's own commanders wanted to just give up on India and retreat to Kabul. But his regent, a veteran general named Bairam Khan, convinced them to fight. Everything came down to one single, decisive battle.
At the Second Battle of Panipat, the Mughals were outnumbered and they were getting crushed. Humayun was on his war elephant, leading the charge, and it looked like victory was his.
And then, a one-in-a-million moment of pure chance. A stray arrow flies across the battlefield and hits Humayun right in the eye, knocking him out cold. His army sees their leader fall, and they panic. They scatter and flee. And in that one moment, the future of an empire was saved, not by some grand strategy, but by a single, lucky shot.
So, with his throne secured by fate, Akbar now had to actually build an empire with his own two hands. This is where we see him shift from just surviving to becoming a master strategist.
So how did he do it? Akbar's genius was finding these incredibly elegant solutions to massive problems. First up, powerful rival kingdoms. His solution? Marry them. He married Rajput princesses and treated their families as equals, turning enemies into family. Second problem, how do you control a huge, diverse empire? He came up with the Mansabdari system, a brilliant idea where every official, military or civil, was given a rank and answered directly to him. It created an incredibly efficient and loyal chain of command.
And the results speak for themselves. With his empire internally stable, Akbar went on a relentless campaign of expansion. Using a mix of raw power and clever diplomacy, he brought almost the entire Indian subcontinent under Mughal rule, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the coasts of Bengal.
But conquering land was only part of the story. Akbar's greatest legacy, the thing that really sets him apart, was his attempt to conquer hearts and minds. And this is where he got truly radical.
This was the central question of his time. His empire was massive, and the overwhelming majority of his subjects were not Muslim. How do you rule all of them without constant rebellion?
Akbar's answer was dialogue. He built this incredible place in his new capital city, the Ibadat Khana, or House of Worship. At first it was just for different Muslim scholars, but he quickly got tired of all their bickering.
So he did something unheard of. He threw the doors open to everyone.
I want you to just imagine this scene. It's the 16th century. You've got Christian priests from Portugal debating with Jain monks, Hindu Brahmins, Zoroastrians, Sikh gurus, even atheists were invited. And right in the middle, moderating the whole thing, was the emperor himself. Nothing like this had ever happened before.
Out of these intense debates, Akbar created his official state policy, Sulh-i-Kul, which means universal peace. He basically declared that the state would not discriminate based on religion. He abolished the jizya, a tax that non-Muslims had been forced to pay for centuries, and he actively promoted a culture of respect. He was trying to do something revolutionary, build an empire where your identity wasn't just about your religion.
So, after nearly 50 years on the throne, what are we to make of this illiterate genius? What was his ultimate impact?
I think this really captures the two sides of the coin. On the one hand, he was this visionary unifier who promoted tolerance. But let's not forget, he was also an absolute monarch, an autocrat who waged brutal wars where tens of thousands died. He was both a philosopher king and a ruthless conqueror.
By the time he died in 1605, you just couldn't argue with his success as a ruler. He left behind a stable, unified, and incredibly rich empire that was a true global superpower.
And that leaves us with the big question that historians still argue about. Was his tolerance something he deeply believed in? Or was it just a smart political tool to hold his diverse empire together? Was he a true visionary or a master politician? You know, he was probably both. And that's the complex and truly enduring legacy of Akbar the Great.